Hey. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. All right. What we're going to talk about is when and if we need to take diet breaks. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is fat loss expectations. And those kind of, they kind of do this, right? They kind of overlap a little bit with that information. We put out a little survey. Hey, what do we want to talk about? Talk about fat loss. And there wasn't really any specific questions about fat loss. So we're going to talk about some things from a zoomed out level just to get our mindsets in the right world about what is fat loss, weight loss, what should I expect from it? Am I doing the right things? That's kind of a normal, like, I think I'm doing it, but what am I doing? Is this working? Is this not working? So with fat loss expectations and weight loss expectations, there's a difference, right? Weight loss is becoming less than you in total of whatever you lose. Fat loss is literally only using fat mass. So they're not the same thing, even though the science is kind of the same thing of how they happen. So no matter what, the only way your body becomes less fat or less weight is through an adaptation, a change in calorie in, calorie out. So no matter what system, no matter what diet, no matter what application you use, it all comes down to the acronym CICO or CICO or PSYCHO. I don't know what it's CICO. Okay. And with that, we have to understand that no matter what we're doing, it all comes back to calories in, calories out. Now, how we manipulate calories in, calories out, huge variances and highly individualized. But the principles are the same, just like strength training. Principles are when you get stronger, do something harder, recover, repeat. Okay. With fat loss, you have to create a deficit in calories. Most people think, well, I am eating better. And why am I not losing weight? Well, you may not be in an actual calorie deficit. Or some people may think, well, I know I'm not eating enough. Why am I not losing weight? You're eating enough. That's why you're not doing it, because you're actually eating enough. So what we perceive to happen and what's actually happening from the physiological side, not the same thing. There are upper and higher ends of weight loss and fat loss expectations. Inside of a healthy window, you could lose up to 1% of your body weight per week. Now that is the healthy window, potentially 2% on the upper end. Now, when we say 1 to 2%, that's under the understanding that everything is controlled, right? Everything is dialed in. You are at 100% into the process. So you're not just your nutrition and exercise, but all the things that layer on top of nutrition, exercise, habits, sleep, water, stress management, right? All those things are also in line, and all those things have been consistent and repeatable over and over and over and over again. So if all those things aren't in line, which we know they rarely ever are in line, our expectations for fat loss should be extremely variable in a wild range of numbers. That sucks because there's no real answer. And it sucks because there's no real answer. And it's hard because we can't say, even for 100 people, we can't say this is what you should expect. And even with one individual, we can't really say this is what you'd expect because there's so many variables. But what we can do is we can say, are we making any progress at all? Yes, no. Then, if we're making that progress, those expectations of that progress, now let's have a conversation. So are we making progress? Yes, no, that's the first question. Okay. Now, how do we measure progress? Lots of different ways to measure progress. And then the timeline of progress. Even though we usually like to think of things as weeks, months, and quarters and years, our body doesn't really work in a week, month, quarterly, year adaptation. It just happens all the time and constantly. So you are literally either gaining or losing weight constantly all the time. Minute in, day out, day out. All the time, your body's constantly fighting to find equal all the time. Now, how many bouts of repeated deficit of loss and loss and loss and loss then creates longer and bigger term change. Okay. Saying that, the best way to look at expectations with am I progressing or not progressing is looking at trend lines. So am I making progress? Now, is that progress in line with the amount of energy that I'm putting into the process? Okay. So if I feel like, which is an emotional, right? I feel like I'm doing these things. I feel like I should be losing weight. Well, are you only using the scale every 7th or every 4th and then 7th and then 10th and then 12th day, right? Well, if you're only doing that and you feel like it, you're doing things, but then that's the only thing you're tracking, you're not actually seeing the change that could be happening. So when we look at share screen, it'll pop up to all of them, to the yours with the numbers, the Monday, whatever. Yeah, that's preview. Okay, and now find the other image under. Okay, so when we're looking at this week 1, week 2, we're talking about expectations. You see how there's random numbers throughout the week, throughout the day. Now, there happen to be higher numbers on Friday, but those higher numbers could happen any day of the week. If we are not consistently looking at the numbers with all the variables in mind, we could get a lot of emotion into those numbers and we could feel like this is not working. But if you look at all the numbers from week 1 to week 2, week 1 average, week 2 average, 150, 149.4, that is a half a pound change in a week. But if you were to look at the numbers at random all the time, you would never actually know you're making progress. And then you start changing, or you get discouraged, or you would try something else. And then we're constantly never really understanding what's happening for expectations. We can use, this is scale weight, but we can use the in-body or inches on waist or the way our clothes fit, and the same thing. Are we consistently looking and measuring to look at trends to know whether or not we're doing the right things? Because what the right thing is completely different to every single person. So expectations for fat loss. First one, are we progressing? Yes, no. If we say no, how are we measuring and are we consistent with our process? Now, consistent with process does not mean that you are perfect with process. It just means that week in, week out, I am at the gym 2.5 times a week. I am eating 80% of my food as optimal as possible. Okay, right? Now, we have those things. Are we repeating those things over and over again? Then we can look at trend lines and say, okay, with this input, then this is what my body's doing. Now, if 1 week is perfect and the next week is completely off, or you do 4 days perfect and then 3 days off, and then 2 days on and then 5 days off, you're never having any base to understand, am I progressing?
Right. There's too many different variables.
Too many different variables, right?
Yeah.
The more variables there are that are inconsistent, the less we know whether or not it's working or not. Okay. So you want to get the variables as consistent as possible. It does not mean you have to be perfect as much as possible. Just means that you have to be imperfect as consistently as possible. Right?
Right.
Which perfect is we don't think that way anyways, right? Okay. So progressing, yes, no. If we say no, how are we measuring? Are we measuring everything? Are we considering everything? Are we considering time of day, time of month, right? Are we considering time of week? Are we considering what we had the day before, what we did the day before, the day after, the morning of? All those things are consideration when we're measuring progress.
Yeah. Are we considering if we got way less sleep 1 week, or if we moved more, if we moved less, if we had a really stressful week? I mean, there's so many.
All of those things can play into
things.
progress. Okay. So expectations for fat loss should be, am I progressing? Yes, no. If I am progressing, yes, do I understand all of the variables. And if I understand all the variables, then I can repeat them. And if I am progressing, then that is the expectation, and that is the appropriate expectation, and you're doing perfect. You are doing just great. Okay, so now let's move on to expectations if we are progressing. So if we are progressing and we are having expectations, now let's take that, yes, I am progressing, and let's put that on top of the effort we're putting into it. Yes. So yes, I'm progressing. Fantastic. How much effort are you putting into the process?
85%.
85%. We're putting 85% into the process. Do you feel that that 85% is sustainable? Yes, no. If you feel like that 85% is sustainable, you go, okay, this is working. Now, do I feel like I could put 5% more effort to create more result? Yes, no. Okay. If you answer that question, or a pause, then you can't. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment whether or not your process is 55% or 70% or 90%. It doesn't make it any worse or better. It just means that that's where you are. And if that's what progressing is, if progressing is 60% effort, keep doing 60% effort indefinitely, right? Now, if we aren't happy with what we're progressing, right, and we're only putting in 60% effort, can we put in 10% more effort? Yes, no. Yes, 70%. Let's try 70%. How long do we try 70%? Well, we try 70% as long as it takes to see change. And we continue over and over and over again. So those are our expectations of fat loss. Now, if you are like, I don't care, I want these results by this time, you have that 1 to 2% range. Okay. Now that 1 to 2% range weekly is dependent on how much effort you put into it. I want to put 100% effort into it. Fantastic. Great. Let's put 100% effort into it. That means that we are paying attention to everything we're putting in our mouth, everything that we're working out, everything that we're doing day to day, all of our daily movement, all of our water, all of our stress, and all of our sleep. We're paying attention to all of those things. And that's fine if you can do that. That's fantastic. Okay. How long can I do that? Okay. This is when fat loss expectations and diet breaks, we're going to get into that next. This is a huge part of how we manipulate those things. Okay. So we're going to move to a different image.
Which one?
That. Okay.
What?
So let's make this
gosh. A little bigger.
A little bigger.
Because my screen. Oh.
Okay. It's Danielle's first time using a computer.
It's because you're in my space of it.
Okay. Now, well, so this is a weight loss, but fat loss is very similar, right? We looked at trends over time. You see how this is a monthly graph or not a daily graph, okay? You see that there's dips and ups and dips and some flats, dips and ups and some flats, dips and ups and some flats. If this person would, let's just say that they're putting in 80% effort and these numbers are consistent, they're just constantly doing their 80% effort, right? Constantly. You're going to see all these valleys and peaks and flat parts, but they keep an 8% effort, they're going to keep trending down regardless of the bumps, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what our minds and our bodies do is they naturally get to a point where they get stagnant. They either get stagnant because we're exhausted or they get stagnant because of the physiological responses in our body. They say, I don't want to adapt to this anymore. I'm done adapting to it. I've become balanced in this adaptation.
This is my new happy. I don't want to move.
I'm not going to do anything else from now, right?
Yes.
And we see that with people who do dieting, extreme dieting, and they get to a point where their body stops responding or their brain stops responding to the amount of effort they're putting into it. And that's when we talk about diet breaks. Now, a diet break can be two folds. It can be mentally and physically a reset so that you can put effort back in and you can crank back up on the body. So like we take a reload week in the program. That is because we want to go body rest, recover, hold, push. A diet break can mean, let's just say that you're going at 90% effort for 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever it is, right? And the scale's not really moving. You're getting really tired about all the process. And you go, okay, I'm going to go my 90% effort. I'm going to pull it back to 80%. Okay, I'm going to pull my calories back up to maintenance. I'm going to pull my effort back to maintainable. Now I'm going to do that for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks or indefinitely until I'm mentally ready, right, to put effort back into the body. So a diet break could happen depending on the individual. That could be a once a week thing. That could be a weekend once a month. It could be a week once a month. It could be a full week once a quarter. It could be a month for every 3 months.
Yeah.
Completely individualized plan for.
Yes, but it is a plan, and that's
plan.
A part of it. Is it's a plan. It's not
break.
like this big free for all.
No.
Right. That gets like it's really scary. Anyways, so you get a plan in your diet breaks.
Get a plan. So, and if you look at this graph, if you look between the July and August, do you see how there was a flat section and then a peak and then it dipped back below? That would be, I'm stalling. I take a diet break. Things pick back up. I go back in effort and the body adapts even better than it did the last time. Yeah. And that's what a diet break can do. You can get to a stall point. You take a step back, you let the body recover, you let it be happy again, and then you push hard into it and it goes, okay, I can do this again. I'm happy because we're changing the adaptation, we're changing the stimulus to move forward into something that's happy about it.
But sometimes those big spikes is when we think and we say, okay, this isn't working, I'm stopping.
Right.
But you just gotta, sometimes you gotta give it a little longer for your body to
give it a little longer.
Okay.
That's it. I think that's the last slide. Stop share. So where'd it go? What happened? Oh, jeez. Okay, good. So that's the basics of diet breaks and fat loss expectations. The fat loss expectation mindset is, are we progressing? Yes, no. If we are progressing, are we okay with the amount of effort we're putting in? How long can we put that effort into that process? Can I put less effort or more effort? Yes, no. If I've been doing that same effort for a long time and I'm stalling, do I need to put more effort in for a few weeks and see how my body changes that? Or do I need to be patient with the effort? Or do I need to take a little bit of a step back for a while to get my body a little happy so that it's okay with putting in more effort? That's on the progressing side. If we're not progressing, are we measuring appropriately? Are we consistent in our approach? Good or bad? Are we consistent? Okay. How do we measure? If you use the scale every single day and take your weekly averages. That's the best way to do it. Only look at the numbers week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, not at the individual numbers. Only use the daily scale if you can step on the scale and not have an emotional meltdown from the numbers on the scale, good or bad. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
These are very important.
These are very important. If not, we use the in-body. If we use the in-body, how often do we use it? I would suggest using it once a week that's consistent, but you only look at the trend lines over several weeks. For these 2 to 3 weeks, what is happening with the trend lines? For this month, this month, what's happening to the trend lines? Am I going in the right direction? Yes. And now the other thing about, we're only talking weight loss, fat loss, but there's other things that are going to manipulate how you feel about weight loss, fat loss. Okay. You could be gaining muscle and not losing weight. But if the body fat percentage is going down, then we have progress. That's super important. Okay? That's super important. So if it comes to weight loss or a body composition change, those 2 variables are super important. That's what you want to look at, but you only want to look at them for trend lines, not for individual yes, no's, right? It's not in body week 1, in body week 4. There's not really much of a change. But if there is a change, great. But if there isn't much of a change, were we looking at the numbers objectively, right? Because if you go to the in-body on Sunday and at 9 a.m. and you hadn't worked out for 4 days, but then a month later you get on it Monday afternoon and you worked out the day before, and one day you're dehydrated, one day you're fully hydrated. There's so much variance and variable in those testing that it's really hard to know what's going on. That's why the trend lines are so important with the scale and the InBody.
For sure. And looking at it objectively on, sometimes it might take longer than you would like it to, and that doesn't mean that you're not making progress.
Exactly. So that goes back to the question. Am I progressing?
Am I progressing? Even if it's
Yes,
like
no.
a 0.4 or a
Right.
0.2 or whatever. I mean, you're seeing a trend going down.
Yeah, because the goal is not to lose weight. The goal is to lose the weight and never gain it back. It would be crazy easy for us to make all of you do nonsense for 6 weeks and you all to lose weight. But what's the point if you can go back 6 weeks later? What's the point? The point is you want to get to a point that you're confident in your body forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why the small changes over time. Progressing? Yes, no.
Yeah. And that you still have energy to lift heavy shit.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get on Facebook on your phone. Is there any questions about this? Is anyone watching on Facebook? I can't see where's the. Is there any questions that popped up? Do you have any questions right now before we jump off of here? If you are watching this in a replay, which both of you will be, if you have questions about this, drop it below on Facebook or send us a message if we get this in an email, and we will.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Good. So if you have questions, let us know. But those are expectations. Anything is better than nothing. Up to 1% is maximal, depending on the amount of effort you're putting into it.
Yes.
Be consistent in what you're putting into it, and think about everything, because everything is everything.
Everything is everything.
Everything is everything, right? It's not whether or not you had white rice or brown rice. It's everything is everything. And that's it. But you're more than capable of doing it, and we're here to support you. If you need help with the daily everythings, that's what the extra coaching is all about, right? That those nutrition habits coaching, those are all about daily check-ins, weekly calls, monthly consultations to go, okay, well, what variables should I be changing?
Right. And what's going to work for you, because we are all different.
All different.
Also, sometimes what has worked for you before will not work again.
The body is extremely complex and very adaptable. And that's what makes it so complex, is because the principles work, but the principles don't work the same for everyone all the time.
Yep.
And that's it. But no matter what, it's calories in, calories out. You have to adapt the energy equation. No matter what, it's manipulating the energy equation. Now, how hard we manipulate the equation, how often we manipulate the equation is highly individualized. There you go. So we hope that helps out, and we'll continue to pop in and give you guys more and more education, more information. If there's anything specific you would like or love for us to expand on or to remind you about, let us know and we will do it. See ya.
Bye.